Hello crochet friends, and welcome to today's tutorial. I'm Graceface, and today I'm going to show you how to make Gregory. This pattern works well with any type of yarn. Right here I have Greg in a worsted weight yarn, and today for our tutorial we will be using Premier Basix Chenille, which is a blanket yarn. We will be using felt to create Greg's facial details. I show you all the information that you need to cut your own face for your Greg, but if you would like to skip the hassle entirely, I do sell face kits in my store on my website. Each kit comes with 2 eyes and a mouth that have been scaled to fit your yarn weight. I have kits available scaled for worsted weight yarn, Premier's Parfait Chunky, and for blanket yarns like the Premier Basix Chenille we will be using today. We have a lot of information to cover in this tutorial, so it is going to be a really long video. Please use the timestamps that I created down below to help you navigate through the sections as you make your way through the project. So without any further ado, let's go check out our materials and get started. Please pause the video to read the full list of materials required for this project. I also recommend reviewing the stitch glossary on the screen to ensure you're familiar with all of the techniques required for this project. To get started, grab your 6.5mm crochet hook and some black blanket yarn. We are going to start by forming a slip knot, and then we are going to chain 11. Starting in the second chain from our hook, we are going to slip stitch through the back bumps of our stitches, and we're going to slip stitch in every stitch, making sure that our slip stitches are not super tight, otherwise you will distort your tie. Now we have our 10 slip stitches into our tie completed. We're going to yarn over and pull a loop through. We'll cut our yarn, leaving a long tail for sewing. And we'll pull that through here and tighten down to finish off our work. We are going to weave this starting tail into our work and leave this for sewing. To make our collars, grab your white blanket yarn on your 6.5mm crochet hook, and we're going to form a slip knot. Now we are going to chain 7. Starting in the second chain from the hook, we are going to do 6 single crochets in the remaining chains. Now that we have our 6 single crochet, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to place 5 single crochet. We have our 5 single crochet, and in this final stitch in the row, we're going to slip stitch, and we're doing a loose slip stitch yet again, and then through the end of this last row in this turning chain, we're going to do 1 more slip stitch. It's a little bit tight. There we go. Okay, so it should curve at the end like this now. And we're going to yarn over and pull a loop through here, cut our yarn, and pull tight to finish off. And that is how we make our collar. We're going to make a second collar just like this. All right, we have our 2 collar pieces, and we are ready to move on to making the next thing. To make the straps for our overalls, grab your 6.5mm crochet hook and green blanket yarn. We are going to form a slip knot, and then we are going to chain 7. Starting in the second chain from the hook, we're going to place a single crochet in every one of the 6 remaining chains. Now that we have our 6 single crochet completed, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and do a single crochet in every stitch. Now that we've completed our 2 rows of 6 single crochet, we're going to pull up a loop and, leaving a long tail for sewing later, we're going to cut our yarn and pull that through here to finish off our work. This is going to be our overall strap, and we need 4 of these in total. So I'm going to make 3 more and I'll meet you back here. Okay, I've got 4 straps total and I'm ready to move on to the next part. To make our nose, we're going to grab our mushroom yarn and our 6.5mm hook, and we're going to make a magic circle. And then we're going to place 4 single crochet into the magic circle. So I'm going to put my hook into the first stitch, which if you can't find it, you can always count backwards and go 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's our first stitch there. I'm going to put my hook into that first stitch, and then I'm going to pull my magic circle tight. And now I'm going to place a slip stitch into that first stitch, and then we're going to finish off, leaving a tail so that we can sew this on later. And we're just going to turn our little magic circle the right side out, and that is your nose. To make our ears, we will need your 6.5mm crochet hook and your mushroom colored yarn. We are going to form a magic circle, and then we are going to place 5 single crochet into our magic circle. Okay, I'm going to tighten up my magic circle. To do that, I just usually place my hook through that first stitch we made and then tighten up the tail on our magic ring. And now I'm going to take my hook out of that stitch, chain 1, and we're going to turn our work instead of working in the round. And in this first stitch, I'm going to place 3 single crochet. Okay, then in the next stitch, I'm going to place 1 single crochet. And then we have 3 stitches remaining, and in the final 3 stitches, we're going to do 3 slip stitches. And again, we don't want to pull super tight tension on our slip stitches when we're working them here. We just want them to exist. And then into that final stitch, pull our slip stitch like that. And now I'm going to pull up a stitch, cut a long tail for sewing, and pull that through. This is our left ear, and we are now going to make our right ear. And to do that, we're going to start with a magic circle. And the same way, we're going to place 5 single crochet into this magic circle, just like we did for this first ear. Okay, now that my magic circle's secure, we're going to chain 1 and turn, and I'm going to slip stitch the first 3 stitches here. When in doubt, start again. There you go. Then we're going to single crochet in the next stitch. And in our final stitch, we are going to place 3 single crochet. Oh my gosh, my hook is stuck weird. There we go. We're going to finish off our ear in the same way we did the previous ear. Pulling up a loop and cutting it and leaving a long tail. So we have our right ear and our left ear. And now we're ready to proceed to the next step. To make our arms, we're going to start in our mushroom yarn here. And we are going to form a magic circle. And into our magic circle, we are going to place 6 single crochet. I'm going to close my magic circle. I'm going to tie a little knot in the back to secure it. And now we're ready to move on to round 2. For this round, we're going to place an increase in every single stitch all the way around. I'm going to place a stitch marker so that I don't lose track here. So that's 6 single crochet increases. Round 2 is complete. For rounds 3 and 4, we are going to place a single crochet in every single one of our 12 stitches. We've finished round 4 and we have placed a single crochet in every single one of our stitches for the previous 2 rounds, and now it is time to move on to round 5. This round will be a decrease round. We're going to move our stitch marker up, and then we're going to do 2 single crochet and then a decrease, and we're going to repeat that 3 times around. So 2 single crochet, and then an invisible decrease by going through the front loops of the next 2 stitches, like that. We're going to do 2 more. We're on our final decrease. I'm going to remove my stitch marker here. We're going to place our hook through the stitch to do our decrease, yarn over and pull through, and instead of completing this stitch with our mushroom yarn, I'm going to cut off my yarn and we're going to switch to white. So now I'm going to yarn over with my new color on this final yarn over of my last stitch of round 5. I'm going to put my new color onto my hook and finish my stitch with that new color. And now we are ready to go for our color change in our next round for round 6. To start our next round, we are going to do a slip stitch in the back loops only of every one of our stitches of this round. So we're going to go only into the back loops And we're going to place a slip stitch in every stitch. And again, we don't want our slip stitches to have a really tight tension. We don't want to warp the work at all. Now that round 6 is complete, we are going to stuff our hand. Okay, our hand is stuffed. And we're ready to proceed to round 7. And for round 7, we are going to do a single crochet in every stitch into the back loops only of the stitches we just did. And there we have it. That round is complete. And you can see this gives us a nice clean color change from our hand into our sleeve. So for round 8, we are going to do an increase round. We're going to do 2 single crochets and then an increase 3 times in total. Okay, at our final increase here. I'm going to replace my stitch marker. And now we are ready to proceed. And for the next 4 rounds, so for 9 through 12, we are going to place a single crochet in every single stitch. All right, we've completed round 12. I'm going to move my stitch marker up. And now it's time to move to round 13, and we're going to decrease on this round. We're going to do a single crochet and then a decrease, and we're going to do that 4 times in total. Now that our decrease round is complete, we're going to stuff our arm. We're going to stuff it very lightly. We don't want the arm to be fully stuffed. We just want to give it a little bit of form. Just a little pinch more. There we go. Now that our arm is stuffed, we're going to get our arm seamed closed. So to do this, I'm going to chain 1. And instead of working in the round, we're going to switch to going flat. I'm going to place my hook into the next stitch, and then I'm going to place it through the last stitch. And we're going to squish the arm closed like this, like a sandwich. And you can see here's the last stitch. I'll pull my stitch marker out. And now we're going to work flat across through both sides of the circle like that. So in through the 2 loops of this stitch and then through the one on the back side, and we're single crocheting our way across all 4 of these stitches like that. And now the arm is closed and we are working flat. And we're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn our work. And now we're going to just single crochet these 4 stitches across. Like that. And our arm is complete. We're going to pull up a loop on our hook. And then we're going to cut our yarn and pull through to finish off. And that is our first completed arm. We're going to make a second arm and I'll meet you back here. All right, we have both of our arms completed and we're ready to move on to the next step. To make the head, we're going to start in our brown or caramel colored yarn. We're going to form a magic circle. Now we're going to place 8 single crochet into our magic circle. I'm going to tighten my magic circle. For round 2, we're going to do a single crochet and an increase, and we'll repeat that 4 times in total. Round 2 is complete, and you should have 12 stitches in your work in total. For round 3, we're going to do a single crochet and an increase, and we are going to repeat that series 6 times in total. Round 3 is complete, and you should have 18 stitches in your work. For round 4, we're going to do another increase round, and to start this one, we're going to do a single crochet, and then we're going to do an increase. Okay, now we're going to repeat the pattern of 2 single crochet and an increase. We'll do that 5 times in total. Okay, we just did our 5th increase in our pattern, and we have 1 stitch remaining. So we're going to take out our stitch marker and place a single crochet in that stitch, and then replace my stitch marker. And we are ready to move on to the next round. You should have 24 stitches in your work, and for round 5, we're going to do another increase round. We're going to go 3 single crochets and an increase, and we're going to repeat that 6 times in total. All right, we're here at the final increase. So round 5 is complete. You should have 30 stitches in your work at this point. And we're going to proceed to round 6. And for this one, we're going to do 2 single crochet and then an increase. And now we're going to do 4 single crochet and an increase. And we're going to repeat that 5 times in total. All right, we just did our last increase in our series of 5, and we have 2 stitches remaining. So we're just going to single crochet on those last 2 stitches. And round 6 is complete. And you should have 36 stitches in your work at this point. So for round 7, we're going to do 5 single crochets and then an increase. And our increase, and you're going to do that 6 times in total, and I'll meet you back at our stitch marker. All right, we're at our last stitch marker here for our final increase of round 7. And you should have 42 stitches in your work. Now for round 8, we are going to do 3 single crochet and then an increase, and now we're going to do 6 single crochet and an increase, and we'll repeat that series 5 times, and then I'll meet you back for our final increase after we've done all our other 6 single crochets and an increase 5 times in total. I am back for my final increase of my 5 series, and now we have 3 stitches remaining. We're just going to single crochet those 3 remaining stitches. So round 8 is complete, and you should have 48 stitches in your work at this point. So for our next round, for round 9, we're going to do 7 single crochet and then an increase, and we're going to repeat that 6 times in total. We're at our final increase. And round 9 is complete. You should have 54 stitches in your work at this point. We're going to do another increase for round 10. This time we are going to do 4 single crochets to start. And now we're going to do an increase. And then we're going to do 8 single crochets and an increase. And we're going to repeat that series 5 times, and I'll meet you back here at that last increase. Okay, we're on our last increase of our series. And then we have 4 remaining stitches. So I'm going to pull my stitch marker and do our 4 single crochets. Round 10 is complete, and you should have 60 stitches in total in your work at this point. Now, for rounds 11 through 16, or for the next 5 rounds, we are going to do a single crochet in every single stitch. So I'm going to start with mine, you start with yours, and then I will meet you back when we are done with our 5 rounds of single crochet. Okay, we are on our final stitch of our round, and I'm going to move my stitch marker up now. And before we finish this last stitch, we're going to switch over to our mushroom colored yarn. So we're going to yarn over our final stitch here with that mushroom yarn. And we are ready to proceed. So for round 16, we are going to do a slip stitch into the back loops only on every stitch all the way around our head. Similar to what we did on our arms, and you'll want to make sure that you're leaving your stitches loose enough that you're not distorting the shape of the head or making it smaller. And we're just going to do this around the entire round, and I'll meet you back here for the final stitch. Okay friends, we're at our final stitch here. I'm just going to remove my stitch marker and do my last slip stitch into that back loop. Before we proceed to the next round, I'm going to grab a stitch marker and I'm going to place it through the remaining front loop on that final stitch that we had and secure it to a single crochet in the back loops of every single stitch all the way around. Okay, we're ready to do our final stitch of this round, that back loop only. And we're ready to move on. So for this round and for the next 4 rounds in total, so rounds 18 through 21, we are going to place a single crochet in every single stitch. So I'm going to do my 4 rounds, you do yours, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, we have completed our rounds of single crochets, and we are at the end of round 21, I believe. Yes, and now we are ready to proceed to round 22. And for this round, we are going to start decreasing. So I'm going to move my stitch marker up to the final stitch there. And then we are going to start with 4 single crochets. And a decrease. And now we're going to do 8 single crochets and a decrease. And we're going to do that 5 times in total. So I will do that and I will meet you back at the end of the round here for our last series of stitches. Okay, we've just done our final decrease and we have 4 stitches remaining in this row right here. And round 22 is complete. You should have 54 stitches in your work at this point. And we're ready to proceed to round 23, and on this one we're going to do 7 single crochets and a decrease, and we're going to repeat that pattern 6 times in total. And so I will do that and I'll meet you back here. Okay, we're at our final decrease. And our round is complete. You should have 48 stitches in your work at this point. Now we're ready to proceed to the next round for round 24, and we are going to do, to start it, we're going to do 3 single crochet, and then we're going to do a decrease. And now we're going to do 6 single crochet and a decrease, and we're going to repeat that pattern of the 6 single crochet and a decrease 5 times in total, and then I'll meet you back here at that final decrease. Okay, we are at our last decrease, and then we have 3 single crochet remaining. And there we go. Our round's complete, and we should have 42 stitches in our work now. So for round 25, we are going to do 5 single crochet and then a decrease. We're going to repeat that 6 times in total. And at this point, you should have 36 stitches in your work. For round 26, we are going to do another decrease round, and this time to start it, we're going to start with 2 single crochet, and then we're going to do a decrease. And now we're going to do 4 single crochet and a decrease. Oh, only went through 1 loop. And we're going to do the 4 single crochet and a decrease 5 times in total. Okay, we're going to do our final decrease of the round. And then we should have 2 stitches remaining. And we're just going to place 2 single crochet in those 2 remaining stitches. And round 26 is complete. You should have 30 stitches in your work at this point. And so right now we're going to stop and start stuffing the head. So I've got handfuls of poly-fil here, nice and floofy, and we're just going to stuff the head up into this point. Okay, I've got it mostly stuffed. I don't want it to be exploding, so this way it won't get in the way of our stitches as we're working the rest of the way. And now we are ready to proceed to the next round. For round 27, we're going to do 3 single crochet and then a decrease. And we're going to repeat that 6 times in total. All right, we are ready to do our final stitch of the round here. We'll just do this last decrease of the round. And there we go. Our round is complete. You should have 24 stitches in your work at this point. So now we are going to move on to round 28, and we are going to do a single crochet and then a decrease, and we're going to just do that 8 times around. All right, we are ready for the last decrease of our round. And there we go. We should have 18 stitches in our work at this point. And I am going to stuff a little bit more in here to help us close these gaps. Okay, we've stuffed it a little bit more. Time to keep on going for our final round here. We should be doing a decrease in every single one of our stitches here. Okay, we're at our final decrease. And that is going to be our final stitch. So we're going to pull a loop up here on our hook, and then I'm going to grab my scissors and cut. Like that. And we are done. I'm going to stuff a little bit more in here. As you can see, there's just still a little bit of a gap. Okay, we filled any remaining gaps in the head with some stuffing, and now we're ready to close our magic circle. So I have threaded up my tail onto a sewing needle here, and we are going to go loop through the front loops only of every one of our stitches to close our magic circle. And then you can just pull to close up that circle like this. And that is it for the head. We're going to secure our tail here. I like to make a nice little knot there really quickly, and then bury the tail down into the head. And then I like to go back in and out again a second time, just to make sure that that's nice and secure. We can trim this tail, and there we go. Here is our finished head. We've got the side that is mushroom, and then we've got the caramel side. And here is our side view with our nice flat line. Before we move on, I'm going to move our stitch marker here. I put it in the final stitch for us, but what we really need to do is move this guy, and we want to count 12 stitches approximately forward from the starting point of that round. So I'm just going to pull this guy out of the end, and we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we're going to loop our stitch marker underneath that. So we are underneath the 12th stitch, and this is where our color change occurred. And this way, when we go to add the hair and assemble Greg entirely, we're going to hide this little color seam on the bottom. Let's get started on our teapot. To make our teapot handle, grab your 6.5mm crochet hook and your gray yarn and form a slip knot. We are now going to chain 5. Starting in the second chain from the hook, we're going to place a single crochet in that stitch and in every one of the remaining chains. So you should have 4 single crochet in total. Okay, we have our 4 single crochet ready to go. Now I'm going to chain 1, and we're going to turn our work, and then in the front loop here I'm going to place a single crochet. We're going to do a front loops only single crochet 4 times across these 4 stitches. And then we're going to turn this over, and we're going to go 4 single crochet into the back loops of these stitches. And that is what you should be left with. So we should have 8 stitches in total around our work. It's time for us to continue with our next round, and we are just going to start placing a single crochet in every single stitch and keep going for a total of 15 rounds. So I'm going to set up my stitch marker. And then we're just going to start single crochet in every one of our 8 stitches for 15 rounds. We have our 15 rounds done, and now we're going to go back to working flat across, and we're going to seam this close like we did with the arms. So I'm going to chain 1 and then place my hook through the next stitch and through the one we just made. And then we're going to do a single crochet through both sides, just like this. And now our handle is seamed closed. We're going to chain 1 and then turn and do another round, or row rather, of single crochet times 4 across the top of our handle here. And then we're going to finish off, and there we go, our handle is complete. To start our spout, we're going to make a magic circle, and then we're going to place 8 single crochet into our magic circle. Tightening up my magic circle, and we'll place a stitch marker in the final stitch of the round. And now we're ready to proceed to round 2. And in round 2, we're going to do 4 increases and then 4 single crochet. And we're going to take our stitch marker out and do our final single crochet here. And we're ready to proceed to round 3. For round 3, we're going to do a single crochet in the back loops only of every single stitch. And our final stitch in the back loops there. And now we're ready to proceed to our next round. And for this round, we're just going to do a single crochet in every single stitch. So that's 12 single crochets in total. We've got all 12 of our single crochets, and we are ready to move on to our next round. Okay, so for round 5, we're going to do a single crochet and then a decrease, and we're going to do that 2 times. So single crochet and then a decrease. Now we're doing our next single crochet and then a decrease, and then 6 single crochet. And there we go. For the next 2 rounds, for 6 and 7, we're going to place a single crochet in every stitch. You should have 10 stitches in your work. Okay friends, we're back, and we are at the end of those 2 rounds. We've done all our single crochets. And now we're going to stuff the base of our spout. All right, we've got the base stuffed up, and it's time to proceed to the next round. So for round 7, we're going to do a single crochet and then a decrease, and then 7 single crochets. All right, and now our round is complete. So for our next round, we're going to do 2 single crochets and then a decrease, and then 5 single crochets. And for round 10, we're going to do a single crochet in every single stitch. You should have 8 stitches in your work at this point. Okay, we're going to stuff some more. Okay, a little bit more stuffing in there. It's time to proceed. Okay, so for our next round, we're going to do a single crochet and then 2 increases. So 1 increase and our second increase. And then we'll do a single crochet and 2 decreases. Like so. And then our next round, we're just going to single crochet in every single stitch. Okay, we're going to pull a loop up on our hook here. We're going to leave a long tail and cut our yarn. We're going to stuff the last bits of our spout. Now we're going to close our magic circle. We'll thread up our needle, and then we're going to go through those front loops only of every one of your stitches and pull it closed. And this is our finished spout. Now what we're going to do here is feed our tail down through this body. Oh, my poor arthritic hands. Okay, there we go. We're going to feed our tail through the body until it comes out at the base at our back loop only round, or round 3. So your spout should look like this, with your tail coming out of the bottom at our round 3 where the back loops only are. We are done with our spout, and we can set this aside and move on to the rest of our teapot. To make the teapot, get your 6.5mm hook and our gray yarn, and we're going to form a magic circle. We're going to place 8 single crochet into our magic circle. I'm going to close my magic circle. I'm going to place a stitch marker in the last stitch of my round. And now we're ready to proceed to round 2, and on this round we're going to increase in every stitch. We're at our final increase here. And now we should have 16 stitches in our work. I'm going to tighten and tie off my magic circle really quickly. And now we're ready to proceed to round 3. And in this round, we are going to do a single crochet and then an increase. And we're just going to repeat that 8 times all the way around. All right, we just did our last increase in this round. And at this point, you should have 24 stitches in your work. So for this round, we are going to do another increase round. We're going to start off by going single crochet and then an increase. And then we're going to do 2 single crochet and an increase. And we're going to repeat the 2 single crochet and an increase 7 more times around. And then I'll meet you back here for our final stitch. And we're doing our last increase here, and then we had our 1 final single crochet remaining there. And this round is done. And at the end of round 4, you should have 32 stitches in your work. So for round 5, we're going to do 3 single crochet and an increase, and we're going to repeat that 8 times around. All right, we are approaching our final stitch here to do our last increase. And at this point, you should have 40 stitches in your work. For our next round, we're going to do another increase round, and we're going to work into the back loops only for this round. So to start off, we're going to do a single crochet in the back loop only, times 2. So 2 single crochets in the back loops, and then we're going to do an increase in the back loop. And then we're going to do 4 single crochets and then an increase, all in the back loops. And we're going to repeat that 6 more times in total, and I'll meet you back here when we get towards the end of this round. Okay, friends, we are at our last 2 stitches of the round. I'm going to replace my stitch marker in the last stitch, and then I'm also going to get another stitch marker, or, you know, a pile of stitch markers apparently. So I'm going to place a stitch marker through the remaining front loop on that last stitch that we've done, and this will help us to find our front loop round again later on. And then we're going to move on to our next round. So for this round, for round 7, we are going to do 5 single crochet and an increase. And we're going to repeat that 8 times in total. We're at that final increase of our round here. And at this point you should have 56 stitches in your work. Now we're going to start doing some repeat rounds of single crochet. We're going to do 4 total rounds of single crochet. However, I'm going to meet you back after 3 rounds and we're going to work on attaching our handle. So we're going to crochet 3 more rounds of single crochet and I will meet you back here to work on that 4th round. All right, friends, we are back. We have done our 3 rounds of single crochets and now we're going to work on attaching the handle. So we're going to do a little bit of single crochet to move our join point here around. We'll want this to kind of be facing the back of the plushie when it's all said and done. So we're going to space our handle over to this side a bit. So we're going to do, let's try 12. We've done our 12 single crochets. Now we're going to attach our handle. We're just going to crochet through both sides. Like this. And I find sometimes it's easier to go through one side and then go through the next side if you need to do that to help yourself find the stitches you need. There we go. We're going to pull this little tail inside and then we're going to keep crocheting and do single crochets all the way back around to the end of this round. We have reached the end of round 11 and now we are ready to keep on trucking to round 12. And for this round, we're going to do 5 single crochets and then a decrease. And we are going to repeat that series of stitches 8 times in total. I just wanted to also cover that you can continue working around the handle until we get to the point of joining this top piece. You can just let this guy flop and keep working your normal stitch pattern. All right, we are at our final decrease for our round. We should have 48 stitches in your work right now. And now we're going to do 3 rounds of single crochet. So I'm just going to loop my stitch marker around here and start single crocheting, and I will meet you back when we hit our 3 rounds. All right, we have done our 3 rounds of our single crochet, and now it's time to move on. So we're going to do another decrease round for this round, for round 16. We are going to take out 3 stitches, so you should have 48 stitches in your work at this point. And so to take out 3 stitches this round, we're going to do 14 single crochets and then a decrease, and we're going to do that 3 times. And I will meet you back here when it's time for that final decrease. Alrighty, we are here for our last decrease here. And we're going to do a little bit more rounds of single crochet now. We're going to do 2 rounds of single crochet, and then I will meet you back here and we'll attach the other end of this handle. All right, we've done 2 rounds of single crochet. And now we're going to attach the handle on the other end here on this next round. So we're just going to single crochet 12. Okay, and now we can take the other end of our handle and we're going to crochet through this and through the teapot to attach this side of the handle. right, and we'll tuck our other tail inside and just keep single crocheting all the way back around for this round. And then we're going to do one more round of single crochet after this. So we're going to single crochet our way back around to our stitch marker, and then we're going to do one more round of single crochet. So I'll meet you back here at the end of that next round and a half. Okay, my friends, we have reached the end of our 4 rounds of single crochet, and that is basically it for our teapot. I am going to do a slip stitch, and then I'm going to pull up a loop. We're going to leave a long tail to help us attach the teapot to Greg's head later. And now our teapot's mostly done. We're going to do the base for our teapot now. So if we turn our teapot upside down, we can see our round that we did, leaving these front loops exposed. And what we are going to do now is take our yarn and tie onto our marked stitch, which should be the last stitch of our back loop only round of round 6. So this guy right here, we're going to tie our yarn on to this stitch. And I'm going to chain 1, remove my stitch marker, and then we're going to place a single crochet in every single one of our front loops all the way around. Like this, and we're going to keep going all the way around and put one on every single one of your back loops, and I'll meet you back over here. All right, crochet friends, we're back at our final 2 stitches here. Now that we're back around to our first stitch, I'm going to slip stitch into the side of that round to join. And I'll turn this up so you can see here how we have our round. Now I'm going to chain 1, and we're going to do another round of single crochet in every single one of these stitches, just like we did on the previous round. And I'll meet you back here for that final stitch. All right, we are back at the final stitch here. And just like before, we're going to go into the side of that round and slip stitch together to join. And then we're going to pull up a loop and cut our yarn. And there we go. We've got our teapot base completed. And now we've got our tails here. We can weave these tails to the inside of the teapot, and they will be hidden when we stuff this and then put this on Greg's head. So we're going to set our teapot aside for now and move on to the rest of our project. To make Greg's body, we'll start with a foot. So we're going to grab our 6.5mm crochet hook and black blanket yarn, and we're going to form a magic circle. And then we're going to place 6 single crochet into our magic circle. I'm going to tighten our magic circle here. We're going to place a stitch marker in the final stitch of the round. And now we're ready to move on to round 2. And in this round, we're going to place an increase in every stitch. So that's 6 increases. Round 2 is complete, and we should have 12 stitches in our work. For round 3, we're just going to place a single crochet in every stitch. All right, round 3 is complete, and we're ready to move to round 4. In this round, we are going to start shaping the foot. We're going to do a single crochet, then we're going to do 3 decreases. Then we're going to do a single crochet, and then we're going to do 3 increases. And then a single crochet in that final stitch. For round 5, we're going to do 3 decreases to start this row. So we did our 3 decreases. Now we're going to do 2 single crochet, an increase, and then 2 more single crochet. And at the end of this last single crochet, we're going to switch to white. I happen to have my white right here. I form a little slip knot on the end of mine. You do whatever works for you. We're going to finish that crochet with the white there, and then we're going to do 1 more single crochet in this final stitch of the round in our white. Whoa, I'm losing my yarn. There we go. Now we're going to do 3 single crochet for this next round in our white, and on that last 3rd single crochet we're going to switch back to black. So we're going to start this stitch with white and then drop the white and pick the black back up, just pulling my yarn across in the back. And then we're going to do the rest of this row in black up to the last stitch. I believe that's 6 single crochet. And then we're going to start this one in our black, and then we're going to drop the black and pick our white yarn back up and yarn over with that white to switch colors. If I could talk, that would be great. We got our last stitch with white here for that row round. And now we're done with our black yarn. So I'm going to cut the black. And I like to take a little black tail and white tail on the inside and just tie these two together. We'll just shove those little tails down into the foot. And there we go. Our colors are changed and we are ready to proceed. So now we are going to do repeat rounds of single crochet with our white, but we're going to stuff our foot before we move on. There we go. We've got our foot stuffed and we're ready to proceed. I am going to wrap my stitch marker this direction and then start single crocheting. And like I said, we're going to do multiple repeat rounds of our single crochet here. We're going to do 6 rounds in total. Now we want the foot to get stuffed at this point, but we're not going to stuff the leg any further as we're going on. We're going to save the stuffing for later. And we're just going to do 6 rounds of single crochet, and I will meet you back here when that's all done. Okay friends, we are at the final stitch here of our round, and I am going to start it in the white yarn, and then we're going to switch to our green yarn. Put that onto my hook and yarn over with that for my final yarn over of the stitch. I'm going to go ahead and put that with a single crochet in the next stitch to just get everything oriented. Cut my white yarn, and I'm going to tie my white and green tails just lightly together inside. Shove that tail down into the leg. And for this first stitch, we're going to actually, for every stitch in this round, we are going to do an increase. And that should be 10 increases all the way around, and that should give you 20 stitches in total when you are done. I will meet you back here at the end of this round, and we will keep going. Okay, we are at the final increase. There we have it. Round 13 is complete. And now we're ready to move on to round 14. In this round, we're going to do a single crochet and then an increase. And we're going to repeat that 10 times around. All right, I'm on my final sequence of a single crochet and then an increase here. You should have 30 stitches in your work at this point. For the next round, for round 15, we are going to do a single crochet in every stitch, and that should be 30 stitches. Okay, we are at the final stitch of this round here. I'm going to place my single crochet, and then what we are going to do is stop here for leg 1. Okay, we're going to pull your loop large and cut this, leave a really long tail, long enough for us to be able to work a few stitches later. Depending on your tension, this could be different things. I say cut like 18 to 24 inches of yarn just to make sure that you have plenty here. And when we finish our second leg, we're going to come back and use this part to join our two legs together. So leave this loop active, cut a long tail, and then make another leg up to this exact point, and I will meet you back here and we'll show you how we're going to join these legs together. Okay, crochet friends, we're back. We've got two legs and we need to join them together to make one body. So this guy here is our first leg. Leg 1 is going to end up being Greg's right leg. And then leg 2 is going to end up being Greg's left leg, okay? So we want the two legs to join together right here in the center. What we're going to do to make sure is we're going to count back stitches. Should be about 12 or 13. Depending on tension, your stitches will rotate and shift. You can see how, like, as I'm working, my rows kind of start to twist and turn. Depending on your tension, that may or may not happen for you, and our stitches may be ending up in slightly different positions. So the important thing here is that we want the two legs to be lined up in the center right here, and where those two legs are touching is where we are going to single crochet them together. We're going to use 4 stitches in the center to attach these. And as I look at this here, I think I'm going to need to pull 1 stitch out on this side to make this happen. We're going to count back 12. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 maybe. Let's try 13. Yeah, the 13 stitch looks like it's probably going to be the right one. So I'm going to place a stitch marker. I've counted back from the end of my row on leg 2, 12 to 13 stitches to get me to the inside point of this leg. And now what we want to have happen is these stitches line up together, and we're going to single crochet 4 across the center. And as you can see, if I line them up here and start crocheting this way, the legs are going to be crooked. So what I'm going to do is remove my stitch marker, and we're going to pull 1 stitch out. And I think that should be good. And now we're going to line our two legs up together here. Yeah, that looks right. So the goal is for this stitch to line up to the next stitch if we continue crocheting here. So we want our legs to lay together and face forward. If you start working your legs and one of them is crooked, you can undo the stitches and then line them up like one stitch further back. I hope all of this is making sense. So it looks as though we are lined up in the right position now. I am going to take my hook. I'm going to place it into the active loop of leg 1, and then we are going to use that tail we left to crochet these two legs together. I'm going to remove the stitch marker, and we're going to go through both legs and single crochet 3 stitches. And now, as you can see, our legs are lying flat and facing forward, and that is looking good. So now we've got our 3 single crochet. I'm going to do a slip stitch through this 4th stitch here, and then we're going to finish off and secure this. And this is what you should be left with. Your 2 legs face forward, connected in the center like this. We have not stuffed our legs, and we're not going to stuff our legs yet. We need to reinforce these legs with dowels. As you can see how skinny they are, they're not going to be big enough to support Greg's weight. You're going to need support even if you make this in something like worsted weight and it's not going to be as large of a plush. You're still going to need some sort of stiff support in those legs. For my worsted weight Greg, I used 1/4 inch wooden dowels. For this blanket yarn Greg, we are going to use 3/8 inch wooden dowels. And those dowels come in 1 foot lengths, which are just perfect for this project. I purchased mine at Walmart for $2. I will post a link to that product down below as well. Now that we have our 2 legs connected, we are ready to proceed with round 16. We're going to go back over to leg 2 and pick up where we left off and single crochet all the way around both of the outsides of our legs here. So we're going to single crochet all the way around the front of this leg into this final stitch, and then switch over to this next leg, crochet into this stitch, and keep going. Same thing on the back side. And I will do this here. We'll play this in a fast motion for you. I'll speed it up. You should have 52 stitches in your work when you get done with this one. Okay friends, we have finished our row of single crochets and now our legs are attached together. We are going to be left with a gap right here and one in the back side as well between these stitches that may leave a little bit of a gap of fluff visible. I do recommend going in and using this tail to kind of sew up those 2 little gaps before you get too much further along in this process. You can always go back and do it at the end from the outside. It's just you might as well take advantage of this right now while it is handy dandy and in your face. So we should have 52 stitches in our work at this point. We're going to add 2 stitches. We're going to add 1 stitch on either side on the outside edge. So where we are lined up right here should be in the right place. We're going to do an increase as our first stitch, and then we are going to single crochet all the way over to our other side, which should be about 26 stitches, and then do an increase on this side, and then crochet the other 26 all the way back around to our stitch marker. All right, friends, we've got our 54 stitches and we are ready to proceed. And we are going to proceed with 3 rounds of single crochet. So rounds 18, 19, 20, single crochet every single stitch. All right, we finished round 18 through round 20, and we have all 3 of our rounds of single crochets done. It is time to move on to our next round. And for round 21, we are going to decrease. We're going to do single crochets times 7 and then a decrease, and we're going to do that 6 times in total. All right, here we are for our final decrease. And at this point, you should have 48 stitches in your work. And for our next round, for round 22, we are going to do a single crochet in every single stitch. All right, we're at our final single crochet. And now we're going to do a round of decrease. This time we're going to do single crochets 6 and then a decrease. And we're going to do that 6 times in total. All right. Just so you can check your work against mine, this is where we should be so far. And now we're going to do 5 rounds of single crochet. You should have 42 stitches in your work at this point. And we're going to make the next 5 rounds, like I said, all single crochet, rounds 24 through 28. I'll do mine, you do yours, and I'll meet you back here at the stitch marker in 5 rounds. Okay, friends, we have done our 5 rounds of single crochet. Here we are at the end of round 28. So we're going to do one more round in green before we switch to white. So for this round, we're going to do essentially a single crochet in almost every single stitch. We're going to do 41 out of 42, and then when we get to this last stitch here, I will meet you back over here. We'll change colors and start with our white. Okay, friends, we are back. I've stopped at the very end of my last stitch here because we are going to change colors to white, and I'm going to cut my green yarn and we'll switch over to our white yarn. So on our final stitch in green, we're going to switch over, and then in this very last stitch we're going to do a slip stitch into the back loops only. And for the rest of this round, we are going to do a slip stitch into the back loops only all the way around until we get to this very last green stitch, and I will meet you back here. Just make sure, as we had before on our slip stitch rounds, that you are not pulling super tight. We're not trying to tighten, and we don't want our shape to distort. We just want to do our slip stitch round. So I'll meet you back at our stitch marker. All right, we're back at our last stitch. We're going to do our final slip stitch in the back loop. And now we are back to our stitch marker. And we're going to do a single crochet in the back loop. And now for this round, we're going to go around and do the same thing. We're going to put a single crochet in the back loop of every one of these stitches, and I will meet you back at that final stitch. Okay, we did our final stitch in the back loop, and now we're back at that last stitch in the stitch marker. We're just going to do a normal single crochet there. For round 32, we're going to do single crochet 5 and then a decrease, and we're going to do that 6 times in total. Okay, we are here for our final decrease. Now for our next round, we're going to do 2 rounds of single crochet in every single stitch. Okay, friends, we are back. I've done our 2 rounds and I'm moving my stitch marker up here. In our next round, we are going to crochet on the arms and the front straps of Greg's outfit. But before we can do that, we do need to make sure that we get the placement correct. You should be in almost the right place to do everything, with the placement of your final stitch. We want to line your arms up to the side to where they are in the center of the side, and I am 1 stitch off to attach my arm. What I'm going to do, just to show you where we're going to mark everything, I'm going to place a stitch marker in the starting stitch of that arm. So we'll have that, and we'll use that 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches there. The arm should be 15 stitches apart in the front. So what we're going to do, since we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches ready and marked out, I'm going to place a stitch marker in that final stitch. So this is where we're expecting our arm to go. And I'm going to count to make sure that we have the arm placement correct. 15 stitches. So this should be where our second arm attaches, and this lines up correctly. So if you can see, the arm and leg are in line with one another. So this is going to be the first stitch of the arm when we get to this side. This gap is 15 stitches. We want to find the center of the stitches and get to that very center stitch. Okay, so we've got our center stitch plotted. Our straps are going to be placed 2 stitches over on either side, so there should be a 5-stitch gap in the center. So we've got the center stitch and then 1, 2 on this side. So our strap will be attached on these 2 stitches. So we'll just grab a stitch marker and place that through here. And then on this side, we'll count 1, 2 stitches, and then this is where we're going to place our second strap. So this is what we will be going for when the round is done. You can kind of see how everything lines up. Again, your arms should be lined up in the center of the sides. We should have 5 stitches between your 2 front overall straps. There will be 3 stitches between the straps and the arms on either side in the front. So now we've made sure we've got everything placed appropriately and marked out with our stitch markers. We are ready to start crocheting. So I'm going to go put my loop back onto my hook. We'll do a single crochet to close the gap. And now we're going to crochet our first arm on. We're going to do this in a similar way that we've done before, where we're going to put our we're going to put our hook through the stitches on the arm and then through the stitches on the body, and then crochet through the both of them. I'm going to take the tail and put that to the inside of the body. We're going to single crochet 3, and then we should attach our front strap. I'm going to take out my stitch marker. We're going to grab a strap. With your straps, you want the short tail to be in the inside of the body, and we leave the long tail out at the bottom so that we can sew the strap to the body with that long tail. And we're just going to go through the side of one row into the body, go through the side of this next row, and then into the body. We're going to pull that strap tail, the short tail, inside. And now we're going to single crochet 5. We're going to remove this stitch marker. We're going to do our second strap here. Then we're going to single crochet 3. We're going to crochet our second arm on. All right, and now that our arm is attached, we're going to single crochet 14 back to the stitch marker. And I think we'll actually be single crochet 13 because we had to add a stitch on the front side. All right, and now we'll turn this guy over here. And there we have it. His little arms are attached. His front straps are attached now. So now we're going to do a decrease round. We're going to do single crochet 4 and a decrease all the way around. That should be 6 times in total. All right, we are back here to the stitch marker for our final decrease here. So on this next round, we are going to attach our collar and our back straps. So we will want to make sure that the collar is centered in the front. So we're just going to double check our placement on our collar before we proceed. The rounded edges are going to be to the outside and the flat edges will be to the inside. We're going to have a 1 stitch in the center where his tie is going to be located. So you'll want to find the centermost stitch, which will be slightly shifted because we did a decrease last round. So we're going to put a marker where we think the center stitch is, and then we are going to be lining the collars up on either side of that stitch. So we're going to do 6 stitches back to attach the collar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is where our collar is going to start. So we're going to single crochet 4 and then single crochet 6 to attach our collar. So I'm going to do 4. And now we're going to attach the collar. So now we're going to do 1 single crochet. Oh. And then we're going to attach our second collar piece. So as you can see, we now have our collar pieces attached. So we've got our 2 back straps, and now we want to make sure that we line these guys up equally spaced apart on the back. So I'm just going to line this one up to the final stitch. And I believe there should be 5 stitches between these. So it'd be 1, 2 for the strap, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. Then that would be 1, 2 for this strap. We'll just place a little marker there. And let's, yeah, totally. So now we're going to do our 3 single crochet here. We're going to take the side with the short tail of the strap, go through the side of the row and through the body, pulling the tail to the inside of the body there. And then we're going to 5 single crochet. And then we're going to take our second strap, pull our final stitch markers there. All right. And that is basically it. Our body is essentially done at this point. We're going to pull this little tail to the inside, and then I'm going to do like 2 slip stitches just to finish things off. And then I'm going to pull up a loop and cut my white yarn with a long tail. We are going to use this white to sew the head to the body later. We'll pull our yarn through and tighten it down. And now our body is done. It's time for us to work on assembling all of our components to make Greg complete. And let's start by attaching our bottoms of our straps to his actual pantaloons here. And you can do this after he is stuffed as well if you'd prefer. I just think it's a little bit easier to do this when the stuffing's not in the way, and then you don't have to worry about pulling stuffing out through the sewing process. And it's that easy. And we're just going to do that for all 4 of our straps. And I'm going to tie a little knot on the inside, and then it'll be ready for us to start stuffing. Now we are ready to stuff Greg. And we're going to need our dowels to do that. These are the dowels that we're going to use. They're 3/8 inch dowels by 12 inches long. And they should sink completely down into Greg's body basically by the time we have everything stuffed and ready to go. In order to get these down in here appropriately, what I'm going to do is first we need to make sure that the foot is stuffed. If you hadn't stuffed your foot earlier when we made them, make sure your foot is stuffed now. When we place these dowels down inside of Greg's leg, we want to make sure that there is stuffing underneath it and that it's not hitting directly on the crochet work. Otherwise, it's going to pop the dowel out the bottom potentially, and we don't want that to happen. To aid the process in stuffing the legs, what I'm going to do is grab some stuffing and wrap it around this dowel and then shove the dowel down inside the legs. Then we're going to work some stuffing in around that. I've got my dowel and I'm going to wrap some poly-fil around the bottom and around the stick here. Just kind of squish it down, and now I'm going to grab the whole thing and just kind of shove it into his leg. And then I'm using my finger to cram more poly-fil down around the leg. And you can squeeze with your hand like this to make sure that the stuffing is all in place, and feel for any divots. Like if you can feel a blank spot, then you know you can shove some more stuffing in there. We've got one of our dowels stuffed into the leg portion, and we're going to do the same process for our second leg. All right, friends, we have both of our dowels stuffed down into the stocking leg portion of Greg's body. Now we just need to stuff around in the bottom of the legs and go around the dowels to make sure that they are supported. The dowels should stand kind of straight up, and then they'll start to lean together slightly. So as you stuff, you'll want to make sure you're putting stuffing between them. So what we're going to do is just take stuffing in handfuls, in fluffy handfuls, and work them around the base of these dowels coming out of the legs. And you'll want to make sure that you have as much stuffing as possible around those dowels in the legs to give them support. And this is going to be the process. We're just going to keep working stuffing around the dowels, squeezing the body, making sure that everything is nice and full. And then once we are done with that, we'll be ready to move on to attaching the head to the body. Okay, friends, we have a stuffed body. As you can see, he's nice and squishy stuffed, firmly stuffed to help him hold his shape, and he is looking so cute and ready for us to move on to the next part. All right, friends, it is time for us to add hair to Greg's head. We're going to grab his head and find our marked stitch. So we're going to attach our yarn to our front loop. And then I'm going to chain one. And we're going to do some single crochets into the remaining front loops here along the hairline. We're going to do 30 stitches in those front loops. Okay, my friends, we have our 30 stitches attached to our front loops. And what we're going to do is, now that we're at the end of that round, we're going to chain one, and then I'm going to turn. And then we are going to slip stitch into this first stitch, and then we're going to do 29 single crochet back to our stitch marker on the other side. Okay, friends, we're back to our other end now. We've done our 29 single crochet. I'm going to chain one and then turn, and then we are going to do a slip stitch in the very first stitch. And then we're going to do 27 single crochet. Okay, friends, I've done my 27 single crochet, and now I'm going to do a slip stitch here, and then I'm going to chain one, and then I'm going to turn, and then I'm going to skip one. So we're going to skip that slip stitch we just created, and then we're going to put a single crochet in the next stitch. We're going to do 25 single crochet. So we just did one, do 24 more. All right, we've done our 25 single crochet, and now we're going to do a slip stitch into this next stitch. We're going to chain one, and we're going to turn. We have formed what we're going to call the base of Greg's hair, and now we are going to start to form strands. To do this, we are going to be forming partial rounds or partial rows, and then we will be slip stitching down the sides of our work in order to continue going. It might seem a little bit confusing. It's all going to work out in the end as long as you follow along with me here. So to start, what we're going to do is we are going to skip the next stitch, and then into the following stitch we are going to put a slip stitch. Next, we're going to do 4 half double crochet. Now that we've got our half doubles, we're going to do 2 slip stitches. It's 1, and then that is 2 slip stitches there. And now we are going to single crochet 10. Okay, we've got our 10. We are going to chain 1 and turn, skip 1, and then in this stitch we are going to do 10, start doing a single crochet, and we're going to do 10 single crochet. Okay, we're going to chain 1 and turn now that we've got our 10 single crochet. We're going to do 4 single crochets. And now we're going to chain 1 and turn and do 4 more single crochet. Going to chain 1, turn. We're going to do a single crochet, We're going to do a single crochet 2 together, which is a decrease. We're just going to yarn over in between. So we're going to go in here and yarn over, and then into the next stitch and yarn over, and then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 stitches, or all 3 loops like that. And then we're going to do a single crochet in the next stitch. Now we'll have 3 stitches here. We're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn, and we're going to do a single crochet, and then a single crochet 2 together. Okay, we should have 2 stitches now. We're going to chain 1 and turn. We're going to single crochet 2 together. Okay, we have 1 stitch remaining. We're going to chain 1, we're going to turn. We're going to single crochet that 1 stitch. We're going to chain 1, we're going to turn again. And we're going to slip stitch into the top of our single crochet. Okay, so now we have, oh, I'm going off screen. Now we have our first hair strand basically complete. We're going to slip stitch our way down the side of this strand to get back to our hair base and continue moving forward. So to do that, we're going to need to do about 3, maybe 4, depending on how wide you make your slip stitches. We're going to do about 3 or 4. On the last 2 stitches here, we're going to do a decrease. Okay, so we've got our 1 slip stitch across the top. We're just gonna slip stitch into the side of the rounds, or rows rather. I got about 3 there, and now I've got essentially 2 more stitches to go, so we're going to do our decrease. I'm going to yarn over and pull through, and then go in and yarn over and pull through, and then pull through the loops on my hook like that to do a decrease. This is going to help make his hair strand curve to the side. Okay, and now we are at the base of our hair strand, and we are going to place a single crochet into the next stitch here on our hair base. And there we go. Now we've got our first hair strand complete, and we are back in position, and we are ready to form the next strand. So for this strand, we're going to chain 4. In the second chain from the hook, we are going to slip stitch, and then single crochet in the next chain, and then double crochet in the final chain, like that. And then we're going to single crochet 3 onto the base of our hair. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And now we have our 2 hair strands here attached to our hair base. To do strand 3, we're going to chain 5. Starting in the second chain from the hook, we're going to place a slip stitch, and then 2 single crochet in the next 2 chains, and then we're going to place a double crochet. And then in the last 2 stitches underneath here, we are going to do a single crochet 2 together, like that. And now we have our 3 hair strands in the front ready to go. To finish out the rest of our hair on this side, we are going to do a single crochet 2 together down the side of these rounds here. We're going to do a slip stitch times 2. And then we're going to do 4 half double crochet. Then a single crochet. Then we're going to slip stitch. And then we're going to slip stitch our way down the side of our hair here to get back to the actual head. Okay, now we're back down here to this side. I'm going to slip stitch to the next front loop on the head just to kind of secure this side down like this. And then we are done. We're going to pull up a loop on our hook. And then I'm going to cut a tail there and fasten off. And this is what we should be left with. We've got our hair up on this side, 3 crazy looking strands in the center, and then back this way. We're going to bury the tails here into the head. So we'll bury those, and then we are ready to pin the hair down and work on adding our face details. To make Greg's face, you will need some felt. This is a stiff craft felt in white, black, and in red. My Patreon members who get a PDF copy of this pattern will have a picture that is printed to scale of the face. That way you can print that page out and then cut out the shapes and then use those as a template to cut your felt. I also have face kits available on my website, and you can purchase those in different yarn weights. I will have it available for blanket weight yarn like this, for parfait chunky sized yarn, and for worsted weight sized yarn as well. So if you want to just order a face from me, you should be able to do that as long as I have those in stock. So we've got 2.25 inch circles and then our 3.5 centimeter circles in the center. Then for his mouth, this is a half circle. Width on this half circle is 4 centimeters across, and then it is 2.5 centimeters tall in the center here. And then we have a red oval for his tongue, and that red oval is 1 inch wide and it is 5/8 of an inch tall. What we want to do is make sure that the hair sides are level. And then we're going to place our eyes. This is the first round. I'm going to place his mouth right below where that first round is. And this is about correct for the facial placement. And I'm going to pull this hair taut and pin it down like that. And we'll do the same thing on this other side. And now we can stretch our little hair strands into place. So I'm tugging the hair base to pull all of it forward slightly. And you see, as we do that, it gives us more room to pull Greg's hair down further onto his head, like that. We'll go back in and put our facial details back in place. So again, we've got the center round we're going to place the mouth right below that center round. Eyes lined up to about the level where the mouth starts. And we've got about 6 stitches of space between, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches there. And then once you're sure that you've got your details where you want them, you can glue your facial features in place. And then once our facial features are glued down, it'll be easier for us to sew our hair down. That way our face is set, we know where everything needs to be, and we have a flat reference to work with as to, like, the eyes aren't going to move and it's not going to change the way that our face looks later, if that makes sense. I've got my facial features where I want them, and I'm going to grab my glue and I am going to glue them down. Now that we have Greg's face in place, we can sew his hair to his face and be sure that we like the placement. So his eyes aren't going to move anymore. We know that. So now we can just focus on getting the hair exactly where we want it. And this is your chance to futz around to your heart's content and pull and tug on his hair and move it around until you're sure that you like it. I am satisfied with mine at this point. So I've got a really long piece of brown blanket yarn, and I'm just going to start on one side of his head. I'm going to go in at a random point over here and then just kind of come up near in place where I want to be. We're going to leave a tail sticking out there, and I'm going to start sewing his hair down to his face. I'm going to even out this edge. Go down this way. And just keep on keeping on like this. Going around the face. Up through the hair. But in case it's helpful for you to see me sewing all of this down, I will go into a time-lapse mode and we'll just keep going. We've got our felt face details on, we've got our hair sewn down, we're ready to finish adding details on our head. And let's start with the nose. So we have our initial tail, and it's going to be a bit long to stuff this tiny nose, so we're going to just trim down that tail and then stuff what remains of the tail down inside of it. So then I'm going to thread up the long tail onto my sewing needle, and then we're going to sew Greg's nose onto his face. His nose should go basically onto round 1 in that very first round. And we're just going to go around and stitch through those 4 single crochets that we made to form his nose. Go down, and I'm going to come back up in the middle of his little nose. And that is essentially it. We've got his nose connected. I'm going to bury the tail. Now Greg has a nose. Oh my gosh, he's coming together. So for ears, we're going to line our ears up to this spot here where our hair line meets the face at this little kind of triangular corner. Our ears should sit about there, and when you turn his face around, the ears should line up around to the bottom of the nose. All right, friends, His face details are all complete. Look at this. He's got ears, he's got a nose, he's got a mouth. His hair's all sewn down. Oh my gosh, we're getting so close. Before we move on, we're going to attach our tie to Greg's body. We have our starting tail and then our ending tail. This long ending tail we're going to use to attach, but the starting tail we want to weave into the work. Now, thread the tail, the long tail, onto our sewing needle. We're going to weave this tail down to the center mark, and then we're going to take our tie and fold it in half in a V shape. Then we're going to come over to his body and then sew our little V down to the body in that center space between the two collar pieces. Okay, crochet friends, we have our tie sewn in place, we have our head all completed, and now we need to attach these two pieces together. I have you attach the head to the body before we attach the teapot because it's going to make the top of your head top heavy, and it'll make it harder for you to keep it in place while you're sewing. So we want to line Greg's nose in the center of his face up to his tie to make sure that his head is straight. And then to make sure that we have it at the correct placement, we can turn him on his side, and his hairline should line up to the back edge of his arm like this. And it should be that way on either side when it is lined up appropriately, like that. So if his head is in the center and his hairline is lined up to the back of his arms, you should have him centered and his head in place in the correct spot. One of the challenges is trying to keep this in place while you are sewing. If you have some really long knitting needles, you can use them to help you with this process. I have a couple of like long Tunisian crochet hooks, or you can use chopsticks. Anything kind of long will help you to keep this in place a little bit better while you're sewing. And all you'll want to do is line up your head to where it needs to be, and then you can shove a big long stick through it to hold it into place. Then I recommend sewing across the front first. That way you can make sure his head is held in place in the front and that it looks good and it doesn't end up like wonky or crooked or something. Right, I've got my head lined up. I think we're in a good spot. I am going to start sewing my neck to my head, and if I turn him over, we've got our white tail here, and we're just going to go through the neck and into the side of the head and just keep on going all the way around. I think we'll do a time lapse for this as well to help you if you want to see what I'm doing, and that way if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to. All right, my friends, we've done it. We've got our head sewn onto Greg's body, and it's looking good. So now we're down to our final steps, which is to add the teapot onto Greg's head. You should have two remaining parts, the teapot with the handle attached, and then our spout on the side here. So what we're going to do is stuff our teapot, attach our teapot to Greg's head, and then we'll attach the spout to the teapot once that's already in place. So we've got our teapot stuffed. We want the handle of our teapot to be on his right or your left. And you can attach this teapot at a jaunty angle if you want to. You can make this tilted in any way, shape, or form. You can go straight up and down. That's up to you and your artistic license for how you would like your Greg to appear. We'll go for a straight up and down here on this guy. And I'm just shoving my big old Tunisian crochet needle down in there. And other than making sure the handle is on the correct side, that's really about it. We're going to sew his hat onto his head. Very similar to what we did to sew his head to his body. I've got it held in place and I'm just going to go around and sew this down. Okay friends, we have our teapot on Greg's head. We are so close to being done. We just need to add the spout to the teapot. Now your tail should be in the correct place for you to attach your spout to your teapot, and we're just going to attach it to this general region here, which is like the largest region of the teapot, somewhere in the biggest area like this guy. And you'll want to do that so that the spout is kind of facing upward here. We just want to envision that if this teapot was turned right way and we were to pour out of it, this is how the pour spout would look. I'm going to thread up my tail onto my sewing needle. And then to make sure you have it lined up, you can turn, it's hard for me to do this where you can actually see it, but to turn Greg upside down and look at him from the top, and then line up the spout with the handle so that they are equally spaced on here. And I'm just going to take this little guy here and use it to help hold this in place while I sew, and then I'm going to sew my spout onto my teapot for you. Okay, my friends, we've done it. We've made every single component of Greg and attached him together. I am so proud of you. You've done an amazing job. But look, he's so big I can't even fit him into one shot. We've got to take him outside into the sunshine and take a better look at him.
Thank you all so much for watching this tutorial. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider hitting that like button, and while you're hitting buttons, maybe hit that subscribe button too, so that you don't miss any of the upcoming Over the Garden Wall patterns I have planned for this year. I upload crochet videos like vlogs and tutorials every other Wednesday, and I love to make new crochet friends. Speaking of crochet friends, you can always follow me on social media. I am Graceface Creates on all platforms. Thanks again for watching, and happy crocheting!